back to my channel. Today we are going to focus on BBI Report 2019 Building Bridges Initiative. In this presentation, we focus on key points of the BBI Report Part 2. Visit our channel Dear Kenyans Let's Talk for Part 1 of the presentation, which covered 3-point agenda which include lack of national ethos, responsibilities and rights, and ethnic antagonism and competition. Part 2 of the presentation focuses on key points which include divisive election, inclusivity, and shared prosperity. Subscribe to our channel for more videos and welcome. The fourth key agenda is divisive elections. Elections in Kenya have become a curse. 1 year before every general election, Kenya becomes tense, unsafe, and economic activity stops. After every election, violence breaks out and lives are lost. Normalcy returns 1 year after elections. In Kenya, despite all attempts made to decentralize decision-making and resource allocation, there is still a strong belief that the presidency leads to an equal allocation of resources and opportunities between ethnic communities. In these circumstances, a winner-take-all political system has only sharpened the ethnic competition for the presidency, as people want one of their own as president since resources go with the presidency. To stop elections from becoming a do-or-die event, we must have a more inclusive political system where more communities get a chance to play a role in governing Kenya. We should therefore 1. Change the nature and structure of the national executive to make it more inclusive and ensure as many Kenyan communities as possible feel part of the government by establishing the position of Prime Minister in the same model as used by in Tanzania. He shall be appointed by the President from the party or coalition of parties that are a majority in the National Assembly. And if no party has a majority, the person who appears to have the support of majority of the members of the National Assembly. He must be confirmed by the National Assembly. He may be fired by either the President through a decree or by the National Assembly through a vote of no confidence. We must also establish the office of the leader of the opposition, who will be the runner-up of the presidential election. He shall become an ex officio member of parliament. If the runner-up forms a coalition with the government, then the leader of the opposition shall be the person who leads the coalition of parliamentary parties not represented in government. All political parties not in government shall be deemed to be in the opposition. We should provide that the government shall be a mix of elected members of the National Assembly and technocrats, where appointed technocrats will be ex officio members of Parliament. The President shall determine the ratio of the elected members and technocrats in the cabinet. When members of Parliament are appointed as ministers, they will only get an extra responsibility allowance and not a second salary. Renaming the position of cabinet secretary back to cabinet minister, because Kenyans have over the decades associated the word minister with authority in the national executive. Where necessary, the president can appoint some members of parliament as ministers of state to assist cabinet ministers in their work at the National Assembly. This assignment will not come with any additional salary. Abolish the position of Chief Administrative Secretary. Second, ensure that the system of representation accords the following principles that guarantee that all Kenyans are fairly and equally represented. All nominations and elections are free, fair, and transparent. All persons be included in party list must go through a system of vetting that involves the public. As much as possible, ensure that each vote has the same status and power. Whatever changes may be made to constituencies, save the protected constituencies as they are key for representation in sparsely populated areas. All nominations to Parliament and county assemblies must be done in a transparent process. Enhance the capacity of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to deliver free and fair election by removing all current commissioners and establishing a new commission for the next election. Provide that all IBC staff serve on 3-year contracts that can be renewed only once, so that every new commission can determine its own direction rather than become a captive of the IBC Secretariat. Hire all returning officers through a system similar to that of hiring commissioners. Returning officers should be contracted on a part-time basis and should not oversee more than one general election. Open up qualifications for the chairmanship of IBC so that it is not a preserve for lawyers. A chair should be anyone with at least 15 years of experience in a senior management level. Make the chairman of IBC the chief executive officer of the commission so that he is not undermined by the secretary, who is currently the CEO. Give the leaders of political parties a role in the recruitment of IBC commissioners to enhance support for the common commission from political contestants. The key point is inclusivity. In order to build a stable nation, it is important that all people, individually and as communities, feel as part of the national life and feel included in the management of the country's affairs. To enhance the participation of people in the national life, we should establish the office of the public rapporteur to conduct all public participation on behalf of all public entities, both national and devolved, undertaking policies and operation initiatives in order to remove bias, exclusion, and prejudice in public participation. Deal with marginalization at the county level by putting focus on inclusivity in county government and making the same demands to county governments are also made to the national government. Evidence from BBI consultation indicate that communities that complain of marginalization at the national level were themselves guilty of marginalizing others in their respective counties. Minimize the power of cartels to utilize economic power and even corruption to shape governance and policy making in their own interest. Involve reputable private recruitment companies in recruitment of personnel in the public service in order to change culture and attitude and remove nepotism, bribery, and other forms of corruption in public recruitment. Require the Public Service Commission and county service boards to undertake selective recruitment of candidates from minority groups and communities through headhunting in order to attain the face of Kenya. Representatives from the Muslim community made strong recommendation for an appellate system in the Qadhi court system. This recommended because an appellate system that makes cases from the Qadhi system back to secular courts beat the purpose of the initial provisions. Publicize annual report on diversity in the public service at both national and devolved government and institutions. Remove all handicaps to dual citizens' rights. All Kenyan citizens must have the same status whether they have dual citizenship of another country or not. Persons should be judged by their character rather than by an assumption that a person with dual citizenship is liable to untrustworthiness. This handicap should only be maintained for the Commander-in-Chief and officers of the Defense Forces and the Defense Council. The sixth element is shared prosperity. Prosperity is one of our national goals. We sing in our national anthem, Raha tupate na ustawi. We say, tuungane mikono pamoja kazini, to underline the intention to share our prosperity. 56 years later, we have done better than our neighboring countries, but we remain one of the world's poorest countries and also one of the most unequal. Inequality is one of the most fundamental causes of conflicts in society. To insulate the society from conflict, we must address both the prosperity of the country and the equity with which this prosperity is shared. We should, 1, work towards an economic revolution. The current economy cannot produce the prosperity needed to meet the needs of the people, and particularly employment needed for the youth. We need to think big and long-term. To begin with, let us have a 50-year plan and then work towards it in phases of 5 years to 10 years. Promote labor-intensive economic activities, particularly in manufacturing, and promote markets in neighboring countries for those goods. Promote lending to micro, small and medium businesses through legal and regulatory guidelines to banks to lend these sectors. Promote and secure Kenyan invention, generic resources, traditional knowledge, and art. Use tax and other regulatory tools to promote savings and investments. Give incentives to people in the diaspora to remit more money into Kenya. Increase spending on development of government revenue and aim for a 70-30 ratio of development versus recurrent expenditure. Have faith in national spending so that every part of Kenya has a fair chance in having their needs met and opportunities exploited. Broaden the tax base and lower tax rates so that people are left with more money in their pockets to invest or otherwise better their lives. Simplify tax computation to enhance compliance. Sharing prosperity also involves sharing responsibilities on the cost of running the economy. Publish tax evasion, and particularly the agents who facilitate it both in the private and public sector. Expand investment in agriculture and livestock and direct anti-corruption efforts in the sector to break up the cartels that hold farmers hostage. Most people rely on agriculture, and there is no quicker way to lift people out of poverty. Develop a policy for the implementation of the Article 43 of the Constitution on economic and social rights. The national and county governments and all political party manifestos must tell people how they plan to deliver on economic and social rights. Develop a local human development index that will enable us to determine delivery on Article 43 on social and economic rights and how prosperity is being shared among all Kenyan people. Start living within our means by controlling our borrowing, which is creating an unsustainable debt burden on future generations. Prosperity must also be shared across generations, that we should not prosper at the expense of our children. Eliminate wasteful and duplicitous public spending in the national and county government and start pooling facilities used by public servants and repairing and using old equipment like cars and furniture instead of buying new ones. Eliminate all sitting allowance for public officers on salary. Promote art and sport, which are some of the sector young Kenyans have shown enormous potential in. Work with the private sector to set up a foundation to provide mentorship and training for young entrepreneurs, especially those receiving government youth funds. Promote technical education and employment as a respectable engagement and not as a safety net for persons who fail in academics. Ensure that in the planning and implementation of big government projects, development in one area does not lead to losing out by another area. Ensure that the areas that are adversely affected are compensated through remedial development policies, programs, and projects. In promoting development in the counties, the national government should ensure that it leverages on the unique strength and opportunity of every country. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of this series. Please share and subscribe to our channel for more videos. And thank you.